So we're going to have a lot of information to share. Great. Just give us one moment and we'll wait for a few others to join the call. If, as per usual, if you can just mute your mics if you're not speaking, that'd be great, just to keep the background noise down. Okay, let's get started. Just a quick preamble. My name's Andrew Wilson, Programs Manager for the Supply Chain Sustainability School. Hopefully today's event has already been useful for you. We've been through a lot in a short space of time. We had the plenary session earlier on at 9, and then we've had sessions on productivity as well, which has been great. And also industrialized construction, modern methods of construction. So they've been really well attended. This session is an hour and a quarter long. It's the feature session of today's event. It's all around the schemes that are being built and managed currently across the regional delivery partnership. So many of our delivery integration partners, many of the major contractors have joined this session to give updates on their schemes.
So that's from...
if people can just mute their mics, that would be great.
November. This one ends November.
Just pausing there. Right, great. Silence again. Excellent. We've got Kia, we've got Balfour Beatty, we've got Galliford Try, Keltbray, Octavius, Skanska and Volker Fitzpatrick, who are joining this session to give updates. We've got a quick order of ceremony there. We're going to first of all hear from Richard, Project Director Balfour Beatty for A66 Northern Transpennine. Richard may be joined by other colleagues working on that enterprise approach project. And we've also then got A46 being updated by Ian Holden from Octavius. We've got a couple of schemes along the A47 in Norfolk, which are being managed by Galliford Try. So we've got Jack and a couple of colleagues from Galliford Try to provide information on those. Then M6 Loon Gorge, Kia, A428, Black Cat Caxton Gibbet by Skanska. And last but by no means least, Volker Fitzpatrick. We've got Courtney Cross, Project Director, to talk about the M3 Junction 9 project. So I'm going to stop talking now. I'm going to pass across to Richard to get into the meat of this session. Richard, thanks for joining. Over to you.
Thanks, Andrew. Yeah, morning all. I'm Richard Turnbull and I am the Balfour Beatty Project Director, but my current role on the A66 is the Enterprise Director. I was to be joined by two of my colleagues, the Keltbray PD, John Hornsby, and Kia PD. Unfortunately, Tim Barber was going to join, but he can't make it today. So if you move on, please, Andrew. So just to give an overview of the project, so it's key to that is understanding the strategic case for the A66, and it's predominantly an east-west link in the north of England between Penrith and Scotch Corner, connecting the M6 to the A1, and it's a strategically important route connecting the ports in Scotland to the ports in the east of England, providing energy security and connectivity for the Union between Ireland, Scotland and England, providing reliable journeys for the customer, and it will improve links to enable economic growth in services, jobs, tourism and trade. If you can move on, please, Andrew. And that's a summary of the scheme objectives: to improve the economy, benefit the customer, safety and well-being. Historically, the route, which I'll go into a little bit more detail in a moment, has suffered historically over the years with a number of fatalities. I think last year we had 12 fatalities on the A66 route, and indeed this year we've had 3 fatalities on the network on the A66, and suffers significantly from accidents and incidents causing congestion on the route. And also connecting the peoples and communities, whilst it's very rural across this part of the country through the Lake District across the Pennines. It's connecting the towns and villages and providing them more certain journeys. and improving the scheme's impact on the environment. Next slide, please, Andrew. So just to give an overview of the project, the scheme actually runs from Penrith in the west to Scotch Corner in the east. So junction 40 M6 is Penrith over to Scotch Corner. That's roughly 50 miles from Penrith to Scotch Corner. Historically, over the years, 35 miles has been dualled in sections, and the scheme is to complete the dualling, or 15 miles, over a series of schemes in one fell swoop. And I'll break that down on the next two slides, if we can move on, please, Andrew. So this shows the schemes on the west side of the Pennines, and the scheme will be delivered by Balfour Beatty Atkins, Keir and Keltbury, and the schemes themselves have been divided up. There's a little table there in the bottom left corner of how those schemes have been awarded to the various contractors involved. Thank you. So starting at the west at junction 40, Keir team will deliver the upgrade to the M6 junction 40 scheme and upgrade the existing A66 through Kempley Bank. We then move on to a section adjacent to Centre Parks between Penrith and Temple Sowerby. That scheme will be delivered partly by Keltbury, scheme 3A, and a BBA scheme 3B to complete that as an interface there. We then move along to a section where we actually go offline of the existing A66 route. And this is the only section where we have a bypass as such. So that's a Balfour Beatty Atkins scheme to upgrade the A66 offline and then in future detrunk the existing A66. And then we move on to another section of online upgrade of the existing single carriageway to dual carriageway at Walcott, Appleby to Brough, which will be delivered by Keir. Now those schemes, with the first schemes we start, they're further in development. The detailed design for those schemes is nearly complete. And I'll move on to the milestones in the future. I'll give an indication of when we're actually starting works on those schemes. Next slide, please, Andrew. So this jumps across the Pennines in the four schemes in the east. These schemes are going to be delivered by Keir and Balfour Beatty Atkins. We've got schemes 7 and 8 by Keir and schemes 9 and 11. Now, the design contracts for these schemes was awarded earlier this year. So these schemes are now moving into detailed design. They are a little bit further behind in programme than the schemes in the west. So we're, just thought that might happen. So those schemes, online upgrades of the existing single carriageway, and then some works around junction 53 on the A1 to upgrade at Scotch Corner. And on completion of the scheme, in fact, we'll have a dual carriageway linking Penrith to Scotch Corner. Okay, next slide, please, Andrew. So just to give a feel for the scheme, and these are the overall project metrics. The earthworks, to give us a feel for the scale of the project, we've got circa 5.2 million cube of excavation and 4.8 million cube of fill, with the deficit which we'll be able to accommodate within the scheme. We're expecting to start the earthwork season in 2025 and to be delivering that mainly through those 3 earthwork seasons and maximising those periods of hopefully of decent weather, with 2028 allowing us to complete the later plugs released by diversions and structure completions and so on. Typically the material that we'll be going through is glacial deposits over rock, with pretty much no hard excavation expected from the ground investigation we've carried out. And as I say, most schemes will have a cut-fill balance with limited haulage of that material going onto the road network. And at the moment, we don't anticipate any haulage between schemes in the west to scheme over the Pennines to schemes in the east. They'll be sort of operating and delivered sort of independent of each other. Some numbers on the structures. I appreciate they'll be included in the slides. There are some major structures and viaducts as we go through floodplains and so on. If you move on, please, Andrew, just conscious of time. The scheme itself, we've got overall for a project, we've got 1 million tonnes of asphalt to place across the 9 projects. And just highlighting perhaps one particular item there of the dry stone walling. We've got 35,000 metres, 35 kilometres of dry stone walling to install across the project, something I've not done before. And something, should be an interesting challenge for us. Next slide, please, Andrew. So just running through some key milestones on the project. I mean, there's some history, but just really focusing on this year. Our DCO was approved on the 7th of March, so we have planning permission for the scheme. Albeit, as many schemes have faced, we've had some challenges raised to that. We're working through that at the moment. We have an oral hearing planned for the 23rd of October this year. Hopefully we'll get through that. If we don't, I suppose most likely we'll be continuing through the process, the judicial review process into sort of April, May next year is where we expect to end up. Works have already commenced on the scheme. In February this year, we started, or the Keltbray part of the team started a strategic diversion with National Gas Transmission, NGT, to de-risk the future programme. So that commenced early this year and is being handed over to NGT for their diversion works. I mentioned earlier, the eastern schemes have now been awarded to go into detailed design by the BBA and Kia team, so they're underway at the moment. We are anticipating starting low risk advanced works later on this year or later on next month. And that's key to that is the M2.1 and SGAR 5A being approved, and we expect those to be done. The M2.1 is currently with the Secretary of State for sign off. He's just checking with the consultees, and we're expecting that to be confirmed and signed by early October. Likewise with SGAR 5A to enable the advanced works to commence. We've had an initial review of that, and we've got a follow up on the late September to approve that. So those low risk activities of archaeological mitigation, some fencing, some strategic utility diversions, and some access points off the current network will commence middle of October and progressively ramp up across the schemes in the west. We then hope to commence high risk activities, but that will be dependent on the outcome of the oral hearing. If we're successful, we would like to be in a position to increase those works in January 25, and that would involve looking at tree felling, mature tree felling, demolition, and other activities. We're currently in a phase of producing the pre-construction estimate. A lot of work taking place at the moment across the teams, with a view that we'll submit that to National Highways Assurance Team shortly to agree a pre-construction estimate by November this year. And then we've still got to follow on with that, with the budget to be agreed between National Highways and the DIPs. Looking forward into next year. Sorry, there's a bit of a typo there. The M2.2, we're looking at March 25, and the SGAR 5B for the main works should be also April 2025. All with a view to starting the main works and notice to proceed in August 2025. So those are the sort of the future targets for the scheme. Next slide, please, Andrew. And obviously, delivering this across three contractors has been a challenge. We're working together collaboratively as an enterprise. And then going to the market, we've also recognised we need to have a key being lined up strategically with regard to the supply chain to make sure that we don't overburden the supply chain, and we can deliver the scheme strategically. So if you move on to the next slide, please, Andrew, that sort of gives an indication of the moment we've placed some ECI packages to help us through the ECI phase of the project. We've now got our earthworks, pavement, traffic management, structural steel providers on board, suppliers on board, and now working with us as we develop the detailed delivery packages for the works. And looking forward, we've got some crucial and critical packages across the whole of the project in drainage, fencing, VRS, labour and piling, so we can actually coordinate that from a joined up delivery strategy. So just looking at some of the complexities of the A66 and some of the challenges that we face, obviously recognising the times that we're in and the change in government and the spending review that's taking place at the moment. Scheme affordability is going to be a challenge for us. The value of the scheme, the overall project, is going to be in the order of circa £1.7 billion for the whole route, which will be a challenge for sure. It's something that we're working with NH at the moment. It is unusual. We're delivering the scheme as 3 DIPs, but working together collaboratively as an enterprise. So that presents its own challenges, and trying to coordinate and collaborate together to overcome the challenges that we'll face. The schemes are spread over 50 miles from one end to the other, which is going to present some geographical issues in how the schemes are separated, but to still operate it as one single project. And of course, with the sustainability challenges and having no net increase in biodiversity or across the whole scheme, we've got the challenges around the multiple stakeholders and communities that we interface with across a 50-mile scheme from one side of the Pennines to the other.
Well done, Paul.
And then, of course, the sort of the volume of delivery across the 5-year programme is going to put challenges on the local market for materials and resources, and how we then coordinate that across multiple contractors and multiple schemes. So moving on to the final slide. Yeah, and just
Richard, you just knocked yourself on the mute there.
Thank you. Don't know how that happened. I didn't touch anything anyway. Yeah, just to finish on, really, as we bring people onto our project, we're going to start ramping up the numbers now as we move into the advanced works phase. It's just really reflecting on the sort of the vision, values and behaviours. I mean, obviously intrinsically linked with the I bit, but identifying one team that respects communities and connecting the North is a key sort of vision for our project. So 10 minutes, a lot I've tried to cram in, but hopefully that's give it a bit of an insight as to where we're at on the A66.
That's great, Richard. Thank you very much for that. Excellent start to the session. A lot of detail there, and thanks for covering it on behalf of the enterprise from your point of view, but also representing clearly Kieran Keltway as part of that wider project. So We're doing a little bit of a tour of England at the moment, aren't we? So we've gone from the northwest linked to the northeast, across the northern Transpennine. We're now going down to the West Midlands. I'd like to welcome Ian Holden from Octavius to give us an update on their project A46 Walsgrave. Ian, over to you.
Morning. I'm going to feel woefully inadequate after Richard's presentation and then the scale of things. So not only are we going from the north to the Midlands, the scale changes. So rather than being billions of pounds, we're just in the millions mark. Yeah, do you want to move on a slide, please? Okay, there's me. I'm yeah, looking a little bit younger in that last photo. Ian Holden, so I'm the framework manager for Octavius, looking after the RDP packages in the Midlands. If you go on one, so we have 2 junctions as a package just to the east of Coventry on the A46. The A46 Binley pictured there was open for traffic in November 22. And in terms of work, we're moving probably about a mile up the road and starting to look at the Walsgrave junction. So please, if you move on. So, you know, in a similar fashion, I guess the Walsgrave junction is probably strategically quite important. It sits on the A56 corridor, sorry, A46 corridor, sorry, numbers wrong, which is circa 155 miles long, runs from Gloucestershire to the sort of the Lincolnshire ports, you know, the Humber ports. The Walsgrave junction is currently the last at-grade junction between the A45 and sort of the M1 sort of end of the M69. And it does suffer at peak hours from significant congestion. There's a lovely little artist's impression of what the scheme should look like there to the left. If you go on, please. So in terms of scale, it's an £111 million scheme budget. The design build budget's around circa 72 million, and the graphic there is the graphic that was used as the preferred route announcement. So it's a grade separation using a compact dumbbell junction, just less than a kilometre north of the existing junction. There's a bit of realignment of the main line, and we're sort of sandwiched between the grade 1 listed Hungley Hall Farm that you can see in the middle. We've got the triple SI site of Coombe Pool, sort of bottom right, and then we've got sort of residential areas, etc. So, you know, there are challenges. It is reasonably constrained site. Next, please. Those scheme objectives, I think, were pretty word for word identical to what Richard shared for the A66. So, you know, in unlocking the congestion, you know, the idea is that it does encourage economic growth. It creates that free-flowing network. It becomes a safer network, reduces the accidents, the environment improves, and it becomes way more accessible. In terms of where we're at the minute, so we are in the sort of preliminary design phase at the minute. We've finished all of our site investigation, site survey, so the GI surveys, the pavement surveys, the drainage, archaeology are all complete. We've done the preliminary design, and we are busy finalising our DCO planning submission, which all being well will get submitted in the middle of November. We have 24 hours to take a huge sigh of relief and have a bit of a celebration, because that would be a huge milestone. And then we move on into the examination period, and then commence detailed design, all with a view of getting us to site sort of late summer, early autumn, October 2026. Seems an eternity away, and that should see us completing in the summer of 2028. Next, please. So in terms of where we're at currently. So bottom right are the packages that we've already procured. So as I say, all those surveys, the archaeology, ground investigation, utility surveys, etc., have been completed. We've let packages for site clearance, pavement testing, a labour framework, security, traffic management, surfacing, and we're in the final negotiations with earthworks contractor. The plan around those sort of key packages, particularly those bottom three, is allowing us to do a lot of pre-planning early on and trying to unlock specialist knowledge in those areas. Our next focus is really going to be on our groundworks and drainage packages and the structures package. So there is a reasonably simple overbridge, as you see, as part of the dumbbell arrangement, and then not to belittle them, but then the sort of the follow on in terms of the finishing works, the signs, the barriers, etc. We'll probably start looking at sort of spring next year in terms of procurement. And if we move on, so quite short and sweet. So that again, and I think these are being shared. So there's the key contacts on there if people have got any questions at a later stage.
Just switching myself back on. Thank you very much, Ian.
You're welcome.
That's great. A quick run through covering your scheme at the A46 and particularly the pipeline of opportunities for the supply chain in terms of the timing of the procurement and the sectors of the procurement as well. So thank you for that. If there are any questions, we probably won't have time to dive into pick up on hands, but if you'd just like to drop any queries, comments, questions into the chat, then the speakers will hopefully pick up on those and be able to respond. And you'll also have the contact details of the various presenters also, because we'll be sending around a PDF of the slides. Okay, thanks again to Ian. Now carrying on our trip around England, we are switching east now to Norfolk, to two schemes being managed by Galliford Try. And I'd like to introduce Jack Hendry from Galliford Try and two colleagues, Andre and Tom, who are going to speak about their two schemes, A47 Tuddenham and A47 Blowfield. So Jack, over to you. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Andrew. Yeah, good morning, everyone. Thanks all for your time today. We're just going to give a quick update on the A47 schemes, Tuddenham and Blowfield. I'm going to use this opportunity to remind everyone a few sort of basic principles of what we're trying to do in procurement, because we're right in the middle of our procurement phase at the moment, and just wanted to remind everyone that it's really important that we follow some basic rules. If you could move forwards a couple of slides. So first of all, we advertise all of our opportunities on Contracts Finder. Get Contracts Finder and register your interest. If you're not sure, you need to reach out to us. We do have a procurement email address, a47@gallifordtry.co.uk. So reach out and speak to us if you're interested in bidding for some works. And I'll show you a few of the packages in a minute. In terms of tender information, so a real plea to everyone to go and download and review that tender information as early as possible. It's important that you understand what we're looking for at the outset, rather than opening it up and realizing this is a bit of a bigger task than you expected. That sort of ties into the piece around getting your tender queries in by the stated deadline. We want you to ask questions about the tender, because it means that we get an opportunity to clarify exactly what we're looking for, and ultimately we're going to get a better bid in at the end of it. A bit about extensions. Obviously, we'll bend over backwards to try and make it possible for you guys if we feel there's a genuine reason, but we are doing a lot of procurement at the moment, and it's not always going to be possible. So if you need an extension, get that request in early, and we'll review it on a case-by-case basis. And then finally, please read the instructions. In the instructions, it tells you clearly exactly how we're going to be evaluating that tender. In general, we're going to be using the balanced scorecard approach with a stated percentage for each element. But what that's made up of, it could be to do with the price list, it could be a basket of goods, and then the quality side, we will include a quality questionnaire, but it could be a scored interview, it could be behavioural assessments, or it could be audits. So just read the instructions, be really clear about what we're asking of you, and then just showing you on the right hand side that we use cross-functional teams to support the procurement, and we find that gets the best result in terms of evaluating and getting the right inputs at the front end. Next slide, please. So I'm not going to go through these in detail, but these are, as it stands, the forecast dates for issuing tenders on the A47 Tuddenham scheme. You will have a copy of these slides after we've finished, so you'll be able to review these in detail. But just to say, these forecast dates are subject to change. So if you're not sure, reach out or make sure you register your interest via not construction line, contracts finder. But hopefully this is an indication. There's still a lot of procurement to do. These are all procurements that have not started. We haven't pulled the information together and got these out yet. Next slide, please. And then these are the Blowfield schemes. So again, slightly less because the Blowfield scheme is probably a couple of months further ahead than Tuddenham, but still plenty of opportunity to get involved. So scan your eye through that and go and register your interest. I will pass on to Andre.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Andre Humplik. I'm the project director on the North Tuddenham to Eastern dualling. If you can just move to the next slide, please. So I'll give you a quick overview of the scheme. So we are now entering the PCF stage 6. So we are moving from development stage into construction. We are obviously very close to starting and claiming the start of works and notice to proceed. As you can see on the picture, it's a dualling of the existing A47 just to the west of Norwich. Just giving you a quick description of the scheme. On the left hand side, we are essentially plugging a hole between two dual sections. The scheme is about 10 kilometers long, and on the top left, this is where we tie into the North Tuddenham section. We go offline. We've got 5 bridges and 2 underpasses on the scheme. We continue towards Norwich from left to right and approach the Wood Lane junction. We've got 2 grade separated junctions on the scheme. The Wood Lane junction is gonna provide a future link to the Norwich Western Link, which is the missing piece. And it's essentially the A47, the dual A47 flies over that junction and continues through the east towards Norwich Junction, which is another grade separated junction, and ties back into the dual section to the just to the west of Norwich. The scheme, generally the objectives are similar to what Richard and Ian mentioned before, not that different. Encourage economic growth. There is lots of housing being built around Norwich area, so this dualling is gonna unlock lots of potential for housing. Support the smooth flow of traffic. To all those of you who have been in Norfolk for a holiday, you will know that the connection links are quite limited. So this scheme provides essential sort of capacity increase in the network, and national highways are, over a long-term period looking at dualing the whole of the A47 all the way to Peterborough. So this is just another section which is filling the missing gaps, and there are significant environmental enhancement being delivered by this scheme. Alongside it, you can see, you may be able to see the red line boundary. We are actually claiming quite a lot of land, which is being enhanced by creation all sorts of habitats within the area. So the legacy of the scheme is going to be very, very positive. Looking at the quantities, as I mentioned, there's 5 bridges and 2 underpasses being built as a part of the scheme. Probably the most technically challenging is going to be the 42-meter span over bridge over River Tut. The other bridges are relatively straightforward structures. Only a couple of them are actually piled. The rest are just gravity founded. We've got circa 900,000 cube of muck to shift over the period of the scheme, and we are planning to transport about 120,000 cubic meters of material over to our sister scheme at Blowfield, which Tom's gonna describe in a minute. We have about 145,000 cubic meters of material to move internally through which has to go on the road, because the scheme crosses 3 times the existing A47. So there are areas where majority of the muck shift is going to be done internally through dumpers, but there about 145,000 has to go actually on the road. We've got 33 kilometers of fencing with 15 kilometers of VRS to go in, 45 kilometers of drainage, so some significant packages there. 250,000 square meters of pavement to lay, 1 million square meters of landscaping to do, which will involve planting of 400,000 of trees and shrubs and other plants. We are already established quite well within the area. I'm sitting in a brand new compound just outside of Honningham office and outside of Honningham roundabout, and we will build another small satellite compound just to the east of the scheme. From utilities perspective, it's a really good story. We have managed to divert majority of our utilities already, so big risk mitigated there. And as I mentioned, there will be some key sort of environmental mitigations. Well, some of them are already taking place, and we will be building new habitats as we progress the work. The scheme itself, we are in terms of the team, we are currently going through a huge amount of recruitment going on, because we are just building up the scheme. The main construction period is gonna be the next year, the 2025, where we're gonna ramp up. We will start the earthworks, we will start the drainage, lots of structures being built. But we have managed to, through some good collaboration with National Highways, we have already managed to bring some work forward. So we are already in process of piling. That's well ongoing. We have already completed all the archaeology out on site, and we are now in process of importing some material ahead of the construction on site. So yeah, lots of work already happening on the scheme. So just quick look at the timeline, if you can move to the next slide. So we have already started some piling. Notice to proceed and start of work are imminent. We have had a little bit of a delay there, but we are looking at this week to claim start of works and get the notice to proceed. Norwich Road Bridge piling, that has already happened actually ahead of the program. We are making some good progress there. Vegetation clearance starts at the beginning of October, and the earthworks starting, and that should be March I think that's the 26th of March rather than the year. So next spring, essentially, the major earthworks starting. And here's just an overview of what our sort of key activities look like on one page. Essentially, starting the start of work being claimed essentially this week, and open for traffic in April 27. So 32 months construction period. Our critical path runs through the key junctions, which I mentioned. Everything else is the scheme is mainly offline, and it crosses in 3 locations where we're going to have crossovers. But the majority of the critical path actually sits within the eastern junction. And that's, I think, everything from me. I will hand over to Tom.
Good morning. Hi, I'm Tom Farley, the project director for the Blowfield scheme. So if you just move on to the next slide, please. So Blowfield has basically commenced start of works, notice of proceeders this week. We have started. So our key dates are open for traffic in May 26 with completion of July 26. I've got a few slides which were going to go through the phasing, which just for consideration of time, I'll just talk about this slide and where we are, and then we can move on to the next schemes. So fundamentally, we've got 2 structures in Blowfield, both one at the west and one at the east end. The one at the east end is our critical path. We need to get that up so we can get the traffic diverted on the new carriageway underneath it. So and that releases the north side, and there's another structure to do as a protection slab over some utilities, and that allows that north side of the eastern structure to be constructed. And on the western end, we've got one structure which has got some ground improvements to do, which we're starting with at the moment. We're building the access platforms in for the stone columns into the western structure. Over the winter, the idea is to get everything hard so we can build those structures, and that releases the earthworks to start in April next year, which aligns with the movement of material from Tuddenham as well. So next year, the structures will continually get constructed over 2025. The earthworks will go through next year and into 26. Once that the earthworks, the surfacing is complete, we can then move all the traffic onto the new carriageway, because we're pretty much all offline, and that's the beauty of the scheme. We've only got one major utility, which is Cadent, and they're on site at the moment, and that's the yellow line on the southern side of the project. So once they're out of the way, come March next year, the scheme will be free of utilities. So we're in a really good position for that. We've worked hard in some of the delay periods we've had to date, with judicial reviews and things like that. So we've been able to get most of the utilities diverted to put us in that good place. So once the traffic's all on the new carriageway, that allows the existing A47 to be detrunked and all the work's complete there. And that will serve a great benefit to the local community. They're all in a bid for us to get this completed, because it's an accident black spot. It's horrendous for traffic congestion for people coming out of Great Yarmouth to work to Norwich. You've got the tourist trade as well. It's just a piece of road that you just cannot. You just don't know when it's going to back up, and it's just, as I say, it's an accident black spot. So this is going to be a great improvement. And being from the area, I know the road well, and so it's sort of keen in my heart to get this work done and get this road constructed. So I'll leave it there.
That's great, Tom. Thanks also, Andre, and thanks, Jack, for chairing that particular session. Best of luck with the ongoing work at A47. So continuing our little tour, back up to the northwest, we find ourselves in Cumbria. I'd like to introduce Martin Black from Kier to talk about the M6 Lune Gorge project. Martin, welcome.
Thanks, Andrew. So next slide, if you could. Great stuff. So could you just go back one slide if that's okay? Thank you. So yeah, just before we start on a bit of a project overview, and I'll try and keep it as brief as I can because conscious of time. My name's Martin Black. I'm project lead for Kia on M6 Loon Gorge. I've also got Kevin Hannos, our MQS, will be chipping in a moment or two. So just a bit of a very brief overview around where and how we got to working on Loon Gorge. Kia were awarded and asked to look at Loon Gorge in 2022 by National Highways, and since then we've worked with our design partners who are RPS and Tony G and Kia's own internal design teams to look at the project in stages 3 through to stage 7. So we're currently in stage 3 for everyone's information at the minute. So we're about to go into stage 5 in the next year or so. So if you could just press onto the next slide, please. Thank you very much. So what is Loon Gorge? So in essence, Loon Gorge, we are replacing 8 bridge decks on the M6. So in the northwest, very close to the A66, the M6 in this area, obviously, it's an arterial route that runs and links Scotland to England and vice versa. So basically, without getting into massive amounts of detail, the bridge decks have issues with the half joints, which is a supporting mechanism. So as a result, we've been asked to look at replacing all of the bridge decks whilst leaving the substructure in place. So what we'll be doing is starting that work in earnest in around about 2026. From where we started in 2022 to now, we've been looking at options. There's a list of structures on there where we've looked at replacing some of the bridges with hybrid solutions, which will either be concrete beams, weathering steel beams, or a mixture of the two. And we've also looked at changing some of the solutions from the initial stage 2 options, which were to replace bridge decks. So we're now looking at infills, spans, and box portals. So there are lots of benefits to those from a maintenance point of view, which is one of the drivers. We want to reduce the need for ongoing maintenance on all of the structures that we're looking at on the Loon Gorge project. So if we could move on to the next slide, please. Thanks. Some pictures of some bridges. So these are all the bridges that we are looking at. A lot of them are go over the River Loon because it's a Loon Gorge. Some of them are in very close proximity to the West Coast Main Line. Some of them go over the West Coast Main Line. Some of them basically have local roads underneath that are arterial routes for the local community in and around T-Bay, which isn't interspersed with lots and lots of different alternative diversion routes. So that's something that we need to consider as a project team. So photos of some bridges. If you could move on to the next slide, please, that'd be great. So just give an example or 2 examples of what we've been looking at. So this is a cross section of T-Bay. Basically, the original option that we had on the table that was presented to us via Atkins was to replace the bridge deck with steel beams. We've looked at that and we've refined that to come up with a ladder deck construction, which will enable launching. So there are savings that we are making as a result of that, which is reduction in steel tonnage and cost, but also where we are in the country in the northwest on the M6, there is we're in the Lake District, it's wet, it gets windy. We are working on all of the bridges in essence in sort of a continuous basis, so we'll be working on multiple fronts. We've tried to reduce the amount of requirement for large cranes. So we're looking at using gantries to remove existing decks and also to do some elements of launching. So that's T-Bay. It's a weathering steel deck, one of many weathering steel solutions. So next slide, please. Lortland House, as I said earlier, some of the bridges are in close proximity to the West Coast Main Line. This structure actually goes over the West Coast Main Line. So it's the original proposal was to replace the existing 5-span concrete deck with a new like-for-like deck. So we've looked at this, we've value engineered it, working alongside our design partners, National Highways, collaboratively to come up with what we believe is a better option, which is basically becomes a two structurally independent bridges. So it's got multi girder weathering steel composite decks. One of the key drivers for this particular structure was to look at reducing road closures on the local network as well, as I said before, because there aren't lots and lots of alternative routes for people to take. So this proposal should reduce the closure of one of the local roads, the A685, by a significant amount, which should ease some pressure on the local residents and businesses and the like. So the next slide is about procurement, and I'm just going to hand over to Kevin so he can give you an update on what we need to do in the next 5 years.
Martin. So I'm Kevin Hanna. I'm one of the MQSs on the scheme. I get the nice dry section where I read you out a large list of numbers. Obviously, the scheme duration-wise, Martin will touch back on shortly, but there's just a brief overview there of the bulk quants that we need. As I say, over 7,500 cubic concrete, 14,000 of fill. The combined steel and precast structures means we need about 4,500 tons of weathering steel. Similar amount of rebar. It's not a major resurfacing job, although it's quite a significant figure. Obviously, we're doing the decks and the runoffs to and from them. So we've got about 25,000 metres of surfacing. As I said, the hybrid solution means we need about 2,500 linear metres of precast beams, which obviously will be made off-site, brought to site and then fitted by our guys. And the craneage in SPMT solution, that has been a real challenge for the guys. And I think Martin has touched on earlier, because of the wind there, we were looking at potentially on some schemes only 12% of days of time that we will be able to operate the craneage we needed. So that's been quite an innovative approach where we've gone for a gantry solution. Next slide, please. And again, just the early works we're touching on, as I say, we start in earnest towards the end of 2026, but we have got some enabling works and early works we've done under our, we're labelling it Project 1 and 2 at the moment. So we're looking for ECI support, obviously for the demolition of these structures, the steel work and reinforced concrete solutions, and temporary works, which is a major consideration throughout the whole length of the scheme. And again, to drop each side of these bridges, we're going to go to a 2-and-2 contraflow. So one of the first operations is to strengthen the hard shoulders, which will facilitate that. We've then got general pavement upgrades. We're carrying out a lot of drainage surveys. Temporary works again, is key. Obviously, how we actually scaffold, prop, access these bridges from underneath now and during construction. And then we've got, obviously, because of the linear length of the scheme, it's over 10 kilometres, is the compound. We have one main site compound and probably supplement that with 4, 5, 6, 7 maybe satellite compounds near each structure. And again, obviously, just because of the upgrades, we need to upgrade the barriers just to facilitate the 2+2 contraflows. Okay, thank you. Next slide.
Thanks, Kevin. So I think just one thing I'd like to add is that when I started off the presentation, it was around replacing the 8 bridge decks, which some people might just think is nice and simple. It isn't, but it's also the project also involves lots of other works, and that work involves advanced works and enabling works. So as Kevin mentioned earlier, we'll be running 2+2 contraflow when we get into the main works. As part of that, we will have to do some enabling works to upgrade barriers to make sure that they're up to standard, upgrade surfacing, hard shoulders, and the like. So from a program point of view, we are currently in stage 3. We have split the project down into smaller projects, just to enable ease around governance. So in essence, we're starting enabling works in January 2025. We'll be running enabling works through to mid 26, and then at which point we'll be starting mid to late 26 on the main project 4 works, which are the demolition and reconstruction of the bridge decks. So they'll be done southbound bridge decks first, running a northbound 2+2 contraflow, and then we will do the northbound bridge decks. So the project's currently anticipated to complete sometime in 2030. So we've got a circa 3.5-4 year program for the works. So that's just to give people an idea on timescales. So if you do want to get involved and talk to us about stuff, this time. So if you could click onto the next slide, please. So final one is just how to get involved. There's some contact details there of myself, James Mealy, who's commercial lead on Loon, Kevin, and Ryan Ford, who's another MQS. If you want to reach out to us, we'll talk to you. So happy to talk to people, have conversations. So that's us really for Loon Gorge. We'll finish at that, if that's okay, Andrew.
Perfect. Thanks, Martin.
Thank you.
Thanks also, Kevin, for joining us. That was really helpful. Gives an excellent overview, and yeah, a lot of works with the bridges and everything supporting that project. So thanks for sharing your contact details. Also, continuing to crisscross, and we're going 200 miles back down the road to Cambridgeshire. We're now with Skanska, who are doing the A428 Black Cat to Caxton Gibbet project. And I'd like to welcome James Martin, who's going to share his slides and tell you all about that. James, over to you.
Thanks, Andrew. Cambridgeshire and Bedfordshire, we cover.
Cambridgeshire, sorry.
We've got Bedfordshire as well. So I'm just going to take the screen. Hopefully technology works for us. My name's James Martin. I'm the procurement and supply chain lead for Skanska, working on the A428 scheme. I'm due to be joined momentarily by Laura Hampshire, who's our A428 project manager, and Harry Dysvaran, who's our A428 construction manager. Today we'd like to go for a digital fly-through of the scheme. Before I hand over to Laura and Harry, there's a few key considerations that have got us to where we are, that certainly of merit to the audience, and certainly indicate where Skanska as an organisation and National Highways as a customer are steering towards. Before I do that, though, just for context, the A428 scheme is a £1 billion or circa £1 billion major complex infrastructure project let through the RDP framework. It's a 10-mile dual carriageway with some critical infrastructure, predominantly the A1 Black Cat roundabout, feeding through to the Caxton Gibbet roundabout. And what we want to showcase today is our digital innovation towards leading into construction. One of the key areas that we've been able to achieve this with regards to procurement and ultimately our supply chain is that we were able very early on in the scheme to not only propose a robust detailed procurement strategy, but actually get that contractually accepted by National Highways. That gave us a platform to procure from that was clear and transparent to National Highways and Skanska and wider stakeholders. In the majority, we've stuck to that and we've delivered to that. It's promoted a left shift approach, so we've been able to incorporate our strategic supply chain as early as possible, and their input to what you're going to see in a moment has really helped promote that digital approach. And to achieve that, we've had to procure using digital capability as procurement levers through different routes to market. But again, what you see in a moment will hopefully echo that approach. With regards to the outputs of this, we've seen as a business that some of the evidence we've put forward for our gold standard accreditation, which National Highways granted Skanska recently, has been met very well and shows that not only are National Highways asking for this approach, but they're rewarding that. They're incentivizing the supply chain, which obviously includes Skanska and other tier ones, but they're rewarding that effort with tangible achievements such as gold standard. With regards to the A428 scheme, we are very well progressed. Circa 95% of the subcontract procurement is complete. We haven't yet finished our first earthworks season, so that's a sort of a tick in the box for this, not only this procurement approach, but this approach to design and construction. But just to sort of sort of dangle the carrot to the audience, Skanska do have future schemes. We have A47 Fickthorn scheme, we have A46 Newark bypass, we have Lower Thames crossing Kent roads, where this approach will be met well by the business. So with that in mind, I'm going to hand over to Laura and Harry now, if you guys are there.
Yep, we're here. Good afternoon, everyone. Hi.
Okay.
So I'm Laura Hampshire. I'm project manager on the east section, and with me is Harry.
Harry Owen, construction manager on the west section of the 428.
What we've got available for you is fly through side by side with our BIM model. So hopefully this works. This is only the second time that we've played this, so bear with us.
Okay,
no pressure,
would you like me to press play? Let's go. Let's hope my internet holds up. Let's go.
This is what you've seen on the left-hand side of the screen. Is the current progression of the project. On the right is the BRIM 360, how it's going to look like. So we approaching existing Roxton Road Bridge, which you can see there. That bridge is being replaced by a new structure in order to accommodate the new 421 and the slip roads. Also, the bridge is being lifted up. So when the 421 started rising towards the new Blackout roundabout, it's got enough headroom. On the left-hand side of the screen, you see the Roxton Road Link, which is a local road that gets rid of all the entrance onto the 421, the current entrance, so make it a lot more safer for members of the public. We're flying towards the north. You can see the Roxton Road Link carrying on the left-hand side with the A1 northbound on your right. It's quite long, that Roxton Road is, but yeah. So we used 90% of the time we use digital tools. We expecting the subcontractors to use digital tools where possible. We got all the setting outs done by digital tool, including for drainage. This one here, which is the most southern end of the job, which is Kelpie Marine, which is again, it's another local link that's removes one of the access onto the A1. So when we construct the new A1, it's free flowing. This is Blackout roundabout itself, so you can see on the right hand side how the roundabout itself changed. The A1's actually going in the box with the flyover for the 428, 421. Now we're traveling east. We are working in a massive flood compensation area, what used to be the old Breeden Quarry. We have to backfill what the Breeden took out as a materials. We have to backfill it with 6A material to build our viaduct and the embankment over. This is back onto the roundabout now.
So just to give you a scale of the size of the project, we've actually got close to 4 million meters cube of earthworks to undertake, and we're around about 1.3 million meters cubed into that, so within the first earthwork season. So that gives you a bit of a scale of the size of the project that we're dealing with. So we are about to head out of section 1 into section 2. So this is where we enter into section 2. You've got the Ritheroo's behind us. So we're now working our way east along the eastern section. You can see one of the ponds there developing on the left-hand side of the drone footage. This will give you, again, a good understanding of the scale of the scheme. So this is completely offline, this section. You can see we're about to fly over one of the culverts that we're currently constructing. And then in the distance on the left-hand side drone footage, you can see what we know as ST13. So that is our bridge over the East Coast Main Line. And again, as you go over, you can see the structure beginning to form. So you're there now coming into what we call section 3. This is a massive area of earthworks hall. So you can see the cut and fill that we're now doing. On the right-hand side of the drone footage, you can see a logistics route. So we actually have a logistics route across the entirety of the scheme, which obviously is a positive impact on the customer, because it means that all of our workforce are actually travelling offline in the eastern section. And we've got that right across, so you can get from east to west, from ST13 right the way up to Caxton offline. There is an area on the drone footage on the left-hand side there. That's where we've had a badger. We've recently removed that set, so that topsoil will be stripped. Now coming up to ST14, this is what a local access for a farmer. So we're now working on that bridge bowl. Moving further into the scheme, fly through slightly in front of us here, so I don't know. So we've got ST25 on the right-hand side. We're still in section 3 in the drone footage. Catch up. So here's one of the structures. You can see the main line in the distance on the drone footage. We're in the process of casting the walls. We've got Kelly's working on that area for us. Need to got a few teething problems with the drone footage and the BIM model not completely realigned. So on the left-hand side, we're still on ST25. On the right, we've moved on to Eltersley. There we go. Drone footage is caught up with Eltersley. This again is another key junction for us. So we are due to traffic switch spring next year. We've got a number of stats to move in that location, and you can see the roadblocks forming really clearly at Eltersley Junction. We're working closely to some local roads as well. You can see the structure there in the middle of the screen on the left-hand side. So we're about to look. And now going west up the, or east up the carriageway. So this is up to section 6. So this is the end of the job. This is Caxton. You can see bulk earthworks on the drone footage. That's one of our borrow pits. And that, I think, will take us about to the end of the job. So you can see really good progress being made. We're on about £1 million spend a day at the moment, but really good progress throughout the entirety of the scheme. That's us.
Okay. Hand back to yourself, Andrew. Thank you, Laura. Thank you, Harry.
Thank you, Laura. Thank you, Harry. And thanks, James, for chairing that session. Fantastic use of technology. It's amazing to see all of the progress on the scheme that you're delivering. It's a major project, as everybody can see, and as you say, huge spend every day now, so work accelerating and continuing apace. There is one remaining scheme now to cover. Thanks for your patience, Courtney. I'm going to introduce Courtney Cross now, who's from Volker Fitzpatrick, but representing Volker Fitzpatrick and the Balfour BT JV. We're heading down almost to the south coast to Hampshire to talk about M3 Junction 9. Courtney, over to you.
Good afternoon. That's going to be quite a hard act to follow, but the M3 Junction 9 integrated project team is made up of Volker's, Balfour BT's joint venture, National Highways, Stantec, and Arab. Next slide, please. So what you see there is currently just the scheme. So the need for the scheme, very similar to other projects. If you're looking at that image from the south, going from the bottom of the plan going upwards, you basically have the M3, and the need for the scheme is to is to address the congestion around the gyratory, and that's effectively traffic moving from the M3 onto the A34. And how we effectively improve address the congestion and improve the safety is providing a free-flowing link from the A34 to A33 and the M3. And that is through the reduction of slip roads to the junction. We also then create 4 traffic lanes on the M3, which helps to improve the congestion. What we've also got is, in terms of the scheme, we effectively introduce the we change the gyratory of the M3 bridges. We construct 2 new bridges and then demolish the 2, and we construct 2 new 120 long underpasses. And then on the peripheral of the scheme finds itself is located within the Southdown National Park. So we, in terms of our social values and connecting communities, we provide a pedestrian, cycling, horse riding route, and that's what you can see on the right-hand side of that drawing. In terms of the key milestone dates, so we've gone through our DCO. We're currently working towards a notice to proceed. We're effectively starting early works and mobilizing for site compound, and then we're looking for a start of works in the new year. Planned completion is late August 2027, and then final completion date is in 2028. Next slide, please. So just in terms of the timescales, as you can see there, we've effectively the scheme started until 2018. We set up a joint venture and really reaping the benefits of working with our JV partner in terms of resource and just our procurement. We've gone through PCF stage 4, which is our DCO application. At the end of the year, we'll achieve our stage 5 detailed design. And then, as we said, notice to proceed, and then working our way through to completion. Next slide. So the scheme, in a sense, is much smaller to the scale of the projects that we discussed before. Effectively, there's 4 phases that we carry out. The traffic management phases. When we construct the works, that's the implementation of a contraflow on the M3. Our earthworks is about 375,000 cubic meters. We've got 15,500 square meters of formwork, almost 3,500 tons of reinforcement, 14,000 cubic meters of concrete. We've got steel beams that for the new bridge structures. And we've got a number of pile solutions for our tunnels. So the first phase is predominantly clearing the way and preparing for our works. Our second phase is the construction of the underpasses, and the widening of the M3. The third phase is effectively the tie-in to the existing A34. For those who know the area, A34, A33, effectively going to north to Basingstoke, and then just the construction of new off-slip and on-slip onto the M3. And the final phase is the construction of the drainage basins that are positioned on the current A34. And that takes us to just the completion of our technology and commissioning. Next slide. So the projects, obviously, as we said, is in terms of this slide, it's just talking about the challenges that we currently have to work through, and most of us recognize these challenges on other projects. Working in clay in any earthworks project, especially with the climate as we've got it now, and then obviously working with a supply chain with the current climate of insolvency and the market, and then the working towards our clients' carbon reduction targets. We were one of the first projects in the south to establish a carbon management plan and working towards our current target of 17% in line with the National Highways requirement. And then in terms of meeting the impacts of other challenges, I'm going to hand over to Harriet now. Harriet Buffer is going to talk us through the procurement and where we are as a project. Thanks.
Hi everyone, good afternoon just about. I will be super quick because I know we're overrunning already. I'm Harriet Buffrey, the commercial lead for M3 Junction 9. Can I have the next slide please? So on the procurement side of things, we have taken out a full tender process earlier this year for the majority of the packages now. We aligned our tender question sets to the National Highways category strategy, and all of our department heads on the scheme have contributed to the evaluations of those tenders and the question sets that we provided. The majority of packages, we've had various mid-tender reviews to really ensure that we get that engagement through the procurement process and get the quality bids back when we need them. Next slide, please. So as we often say, we consider our subcontractors on this scheme to be our supply chain partners, a number of which have been engaged throughout the early contractor involvement phase. Courtney and others have been on this scheme for a long time, it'd be fair to say, and the supply chain partners' input into the design workshops, the process, and the eventual design information that's been issued has been crucial to the success of the project. We're aiming to procure early. We are starting March next year, but obviously we don't need all of the subcontractors on board then. So we are coming towards the end of our procurement period now, and just want to get them on board so that they have time to have a decent mobilisation period and get started on the scheme. Yeah, you can read from the slide, but there's the key supply chain packages. Obviously, the earthworks is a massive package for us here, the pavements, and yeah, steelwork, piling, drainage, etc. And last slide, I think Courtney's actually touched on it already, but in terms of the JV and why we entered the JV, I thought I'd just touch on this. The two organisations came together last year to allow the pool of knowledge, skills and resources. Having personally worked in Winchester now for a couple of years, it is a bit of a challenge to get labour and resources down here, so it's good to have the pooled resource from both organisations coming together to bring our expertise and secure hopefully larger and more complex schemes in the future. That's me. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Harriet, and thank you, Courtney. Thanks for your understanding. I know it's difficult to go last because you have to make up time that we've lost throughout the session, so apologies that you had to rush slightly, but that's great because you've shared a lot of information, and particularly your procurement timetable that I'm sure a lot of companies on the call will be interested in. Thanks to everybody on this call. Realise that we've overrun by 2 minutes. Apologies for that because time is tight today. With everything that you've got on and everything that we've got on. Hopefully you will be able to join other sessions this afternoon. We've got a number of other workshops taking place. We continue now with digital design and bridges, and I think Skanska are involved in that session as well. It would be great to get more detail about their technology used for their project. Then we've also got a quality session at 1 o'clock. We're looking at carbon, we're looking at fairness, inclusion and respect, we're looking at social value, and we're looking at cyber security throughout the day. So as a reminder, those links were in the chat of the initial plenary session earlier on this morning, and they should all be in your diaries hopefully as well. Thanks everyone for joining. We will be sharing the slides and a recording of this session. Hope it's been really useful and look forward to working with you all and supporting you into the future. Bye for now.